What's going on, everybody? John out here with you. It is Monday, March 28th, 2022. How's everybody doing out there today? I know this is a hot topic for a lot of people, but I want to go ahead and discuss this and finally give my video review on one Gran Turismo 7. So in order to do that, let's go one step backwards here. Gran Turismo 6 came out on the PlayStation 3 December 6th, 2013. That is almost a full 9 years since the next iteration numbered game. In between that was a Gran Turismo Sport. And there's a few things that we have to talk about, I believe, that intersect between the two. I'm not going to try to pull punches. I'm not going to try to be a Gran Turismo lobbyist. I'm going to call it as I see it. As I've played Forza Motorsport and Gran Turismo pretty consistently here and throughout the years, I want to talk about these games and how they intersect in GT Sport. So the first problem I find with all of this is the way that it is with the online DRM, the digital rights management. So I have the physical copy of Gran Turismo 7, but what does that actually mean? When I put the disc in, does it install off the disc, or is there still an online update? Well, it turns out with Gran Turismo, this 120 something gig game, even on the PlayStation 5, it comes in a whopping 2 discs on the PS4. Most of this stuff doesn't even really matter when you go ahead and you put the disc in, because it's like a 100 gig update and all that stuff. You really don't own much on the disc. In fact, if you try to play Gran Turismo 7 offline, all you'll be greeted with is the music rally mode, which is kind of fun in itself, but after a while, those 5 or 6 tracks that are there, and more is going to be added down the line, there's nothing left to do. So meaning, even though it says on the box, I want to reiterate this to you, even though it says in the box, internet required for most functionality, in between these 400 cars and these 90 track layouts and this dynamic weather and competitive play and dual sense features and everything else feels great. But if you don't have an internet connection, I'm not talking about a stable one, I'm just saying internet connection period, you cannot play Gran Turismo 7. You cannot play any of the single player modes and things like that. And why is this? I happen to think it has a little bit to do with GT Sport and what Gran Turismo was able to get away with and all that, and what they've done now. And they've kind of made it more predatory toward the point of where it gets to the electronic arts tactics. It's gotten that bad, and let me tell you why. So with the GT Sport aspect of it, it finally introduced internet play within the last few years on the PlayStation 4 release where you can go against other people online. And again, that's fine. Gran Turismo 7, in the grand scheme of things, seems to swallow the whole mode of GT Sport and put it in the full game, and that sounds great. But then it also takes it a step further in saying, well, if you want to play all the single-player content, you need an internet connection, and that doesn't fly with a lot of people. It doesn't fly with me. I'm not going to sit there and try to apologize and pull punches for it. But here's where it gets really bad, and here's where the controversy really started to get out of hand. So, in certain situations, I'm going to talk about it like this for GT Sport and then some of the old games. So in certain situations, if you want to go ahead and use microtransactions that are in an online game every now and then and pretty much all the time now, and we take that for granted, I think, some people, but a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there, that's all it is. Well, in Gran Turismo 7, as you see as I'm going through the showroom here, some of these cars cost over 5 million credits. And when you're trying to get that type of credits, I've beaten the whole game through the menu book. And granted, I know it's all the other endurance races and stuff and some other missions that I have left over. I'm not counting the extra million credits that are in my bank that was given away, and we're going to get to that in a second. I had about 1,000,007 credits. I couldn't buy any of these cars if I wanted to. All the cars I got were earned throughout playing the game, and that's fine, but you're also, in this recent update, cutting down payouts. So people that want to spend the hours, not just grinding the missions, but just doing this stuff through the menu book through the whole game, you're basically getting just enough to upgrade a car that you would need just to get through the mission. You're barely making enough currency going forward to even go into the showroom and purchase a car that you would like. So the payouts were not only gutted by 30 to 40% in some cases, but when you go for the microtransactions to try to get some of these cars cost about 5 million credits. So I don't think I'm exaggerating, and you guys can correct me on this from some of these videos that I've seen. You're going to be spending maybe $200, $250 just to be able to get a couple of cars here and there that are on the high-end part of it. If Kaz and everyone else on the Gran Turismo side want to talk about it and say, well, it's just going to be like a car showroom, that prices go up and down, even in the used car section and things like that, and it wants to simulate real world tactics, well, if it costs me more money to buy fake cars than to go fill up my gas tank now that it's up to $4.50, I'm not really going to be all that interested in purchasing microtransaction packs for cars and things like that. So it gets a little crazy. So let's talk about it on the other aspects of it and what was taken out. And then we're going to go toward the previous games. So when Gran Turismo 1, let's say when that came out in 1997, 1998, Gran Turismo 2, Glory Days, Christmas 99, things like that. Gran Turismo was one of the very first to have a real driving simulator, real graphics, real style, change tires, change other suspension tunes, change everything else, different tracks, cool music, things like that. It's gotten a little bit stale as far as the music stuff, but I'll digress on that on the side. Point being, all the races and everything else were fun. Everything else was there. The car list from this game is about 400 as compared to almost 900 in Gran Turismo 2. I think that was one of the biggest and best-selling grossing PlayStation games of all time, along with the original. And in the original games, you could also sell cars. So if you had some duplicates for some missions and things that you've achieved, you could sell those cars and make more money. In Gran Turismo 7, you cannot even sell a car. You can sell cars in real life. You're talking about a real driving simulator. What kind of driving simulator doesn't allow you to sell cars and make more credits? I wonder if that's just because for the online portion of it, they don't want people to cheat, air quote, unquote, but I think they really want you to just grind for these credits and push you toward the predatory microtransaction stuff. And you don't have to. Like I said, I've beaten the game, barely making enough credits to get by, but getting through all of that. But I have another couple problems with Gran Turismo 7, and it doesn't happen until you get under the hood. So when we go through the menu books and things like that, I briefly scrolled through that with some of the videos in here. You got less than 50 missions, and then you get the credit roll, and then it's over. And then it's up to you to either play those endurance races with the crazy tire wear and the crazy fuel usage, or just play some of the other stuff online if you want to play online. If you don't want to play online, then there really isn't much to do afterwards. So look at this used car section here. So I've got the game since it initially came out, and that was within the second week of March. The used car section hasn't even updated since then. Again, they want to, and I'm going to use the Jim Sterling quote, want to push the game toward a live service feature. And that's what it is. It's going to be becoming more of a live service feature. You got the note from Kaz and everyone else in there saying, we're sorry about all the stuff that we've done throughout this game, about cutting payouts, about not giving you the amount of single-player experience that you expected, about forcing you to be online. So you saw me redeem this, and here's a courtesy payout of 1 million credits. We hope you enjoy, and we get some updates here in April. But this is what ended up happening. With GT Sport and everything else, I knew, a part of me thought about this, even though it's been 9 years from Gran Turismo 6 to Gran Turismo 7. Nothing is going to be all roses anymore. There's going to be a little bit of online and predatory practices. I knew there was going to be some, but I didn't expect the full game to just have about 50 missions and then say it's all over. That's not good enough. I mean, I remember playing Gran Turismo 2 and Gran Turismo 3. I went from 1, 2, 3, and 7. I haven't played any of the other ones in between. I'm going to be completely honest with you, unless you want to count 5 Prologue, and that was the demo for PS3. So 1, 2, 3, and 7. And going from 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, and then A-Spec, and 7. There was so much single-player content that you could play that game for months and months and months on end and enjoy. I'm going to be honest with you and tell you that I've been doing a lot of website work and all of that. And it's been starting from January and all, where I'm consistently doing stuff every day, doing play-by-play and stories. I beat this game, I want to say roughly in 20-something hours, and then it was over. Yes, you can go back in there like you're seeing and doing some time trials. Some circuit experience is cool, which allows you to take a specific car and get best times on the track. So if you want to do your typical license improvements to get golds, you want to do little missions here and there, little drift trials, little circuit experience time trials, all that stuff there is for you, but how much are you really going to want to do that? Let's take a look at this workshop and the GT Auto. Everything is cool as far as what you can adjust. All that is great. But look how much everything costs. And I'll change this here, going from car to car, as some things are bought within this. Like I bought all of these. So let's talk about me spending maybe, I don't know, close to 1,000,000 credits just getting all the upgrades. So now I'm going to go ahead and put you in a car that doesn't have any of the upgrades, and then you can see exactly how much everything costs. So it gets a little nuts like that. So with all the negativity about what's surrounding Gran Turismo 7, I have another critical question for you. Facebook.com/TBUGunslinger, Twitter @JohnReinott. If this game did not have the Gran Turismo name on it, the moniker on it, would everybody be giving the game a 10 out of 10 when it first came out? I feel like all the reviewers didn't know about the predatory practices that were behind the game. I also believe that they weren't allowed to talk about it before this initial review thing was left over, before the embargo was lifted. They couldn't talk about all this stuff and then have to do some amending afterwards. That's not good on Sony's part. To take a mainline game that took 9 years to develop, and again, I'm not going to blast everybody that still has a PlayStation 4 and doesn't have a PS5, but I feel like a lot of the assets, even though it's a very good looking game from GT Sport, I won't deny that. It's a very good looking game, but I don't feel like when I get behind the hood of the car from the cutscenes and all that, it feels like a truly next generation game. Yes, I do love the DualSense features. I love how the brakes will lock up when you're driving around and things like that if you're turning. I love that when you don't take the corners right, you can feel the feedback on the car so you know if you're turning the right way or the wrong way off of your tires and your drivetrain set. The driving and the physics and everything else feels top notch. That's what I always expect from a Gran Turismo game. Hell, we're in the 7th iteration now that took 9 years to make. I would expect them to get that part right. But here's where I also have some other questions. Again, the driving and everything else is great, but does it differentiate itself from Forza Motorsport? I see a lot of these morons out here try to talk about Forza Horizon. Again, that is an open world game. So I want to talk about between motorsport to motorsport, driving simulator to driving simulator. I think the better comparison would be Gran Turismo 7 to Forza Motorsport. So between my motorsport experience, I played Forza 2 and 3, and then maybe a little bit on the Xbox 360. I think that would be 5. So between 1, 2, and 3 on Gran Turismo, on the 360 side, I switched to Forza Motorsport 2 and 3. I absolutely love those games, honestly. I thought it was neck and neck, very, very good with Gran Turismo at that time. Gran Turismo was at the top of its game. Between 1, 2, 3, and 4, Forza Motorsport was right on their tail. And dare I say it, there were certain aspects of the Turn 10 company for Forza Motorsport. I thought that they did better than the Gran Turismo part of it as far as going in the shop, being able to get other designs and things like that, and just changing the game. I thought it was really good. I would like to see now, because I haven't played it on the Xbox Series, when a new Forza Motorsport comes out, how it's going to differentiate itself from Gran Turismo, because I feel like if you keep all the single player stuff offline only and the online stuff online, and you have more cars and everything else there, I think Forza Motorsport could actually end up being a better game. And this is one of those people that have played Gran Turismo for a long time. I'm not one of those ones that's going to defend this game to the death. I do realize the initial PlayStation games are absolute classics. I don't think that they can be touched. But when we're going on to the next gen stuff, maybe it's a difference of these car manufacturers only have a slight deal with these companies, and I'm just ballparking this here. These car manufacturers like Ford and Chevrolet and Dodge and Toyota and Nissan and all that maybe only have certain deals where you can only have the cars available for a certain threshold of time, and that's why there's only 400 something cars available compared to the 900 that was on the Gran Turismo 2 counterpart. So it is interesting. There might be some other things in play that we don't know about. But I will say this. Between all the predatory practices with the online microtransactions and this live service type of game that we're trying to do, I think a lot of people expected within this 9-year period that this game was going to come out and knock everybody's socks off. And there was just a lot of things that Gran Turismo got wrong when you're not racing. When you're racing, the game is great. I love all that. The soundtrack is probably hit and miss for a lot of people. There's a lot of cool things when you're racing, but the experience ends too soon, and there's just not enough content. When I want to talk about a couple things to end the video that are good, I want to do this. So again, with the PlayStation 5 version, the ray tracing and all that stuff is not available while you're racing, but it is in the replays where you get fully reflected ray trace reflections and everything else looks good. It does play at pretty much a near flawless 60 frames per second, and it's a native 4K. I'm still playing on 1080p. The game looks quite good. Again, I know there are other certain stupid comparisons out there, but this is a good looking game. I do enjoy playing it. The racing and everything else is good. What I really, really enjoy, and I really think this is a huge step up from the previous Gran Turismos, and I'm talking about the PlayStation 3 era of 5 and 6. There was so many freaking long loading times with the mechanical drives between the PlayStation 5 and 6. You wanted to make sure that when you entered the high definition era on the PlayStation 3 that the menus would be flashy and crisp and things like that. And they were, but it was not practical and it was not that effective. The loading times in this game are pretty much fucking non-existent, thanks to the SSD. Everything is well optimized for the game. You get right into races, right into license tests. Everything else could not be better on that regard. But there's so many other problems away from the racetrack that I don't know if I can recommend this game to people. And, like I said, 10s were across the board for a lot of the embargo-lifted reviews before that. Even with the Gran Turismo name, I'm sorry guys, I can't give this more than a 6.5 out of 10 because there's just too many other problems. We maybe can check back in a year and see what happens. Peace out guys, have a good one.